Good morning, everyone. All right, I'm going to try to record the flip through for the Orange Journal before anyone in my family calls me asking me for favors. Okay, not that I mind. I say that all the time, not that I mind. I really don't mind, but they really do drive me a little crazy. I love them, but it's hard to get any work done. Okay, so this is my beautiful orange journal that I handmade with by gluing pieces of construction paper together and then sewing them at length so that I could fold that in half and have a signature. All right, and as far as gluing them together, in case anyone is wondering what I did, I combined matte medium and Aleene's, however you say that, just the original tacky glue. I combined these two things together and with a tiny bit of water, but not a lot, because I didn't want to get the construction paper super wet, but construction paper is very thirsty. It's a very rough, it's not a smooth textured paper, although this I did buy a slightly more high quality heavyweight construction paper, not just like the stuff you get in like the 10 packs or something, like at a craft or art store. So I did go on to Amazon, and I have links for that paper if anyone wants to know, but it is pretty thick. I would say probably 100 pound, 120 pound by the time you're all done. And I just brushed it on with a brush, if I remember correctly, and then put the papers together and then used a spreader. You can just use like an old gift card. I sometimes even use this little ruler, whatever you have. And then just carefully really just press really well to get all of the excess back out from between the two papers. Then I stacked them under really heavy books and let them dry. I want to say I probably let them dry for a full day because I wanted them to be super dry. Then I got my sewing machine out. You don't have to have a sewing machine. You could attach them together with glue, and I just layered two pieces over with a gutter of about, overlap of about this size, sewed each side so that way the pages wouldn't, where it was attached, it wouldn't lift. As my pages were worked on and bent and stuff like that. From there, I just followed a Sea Lemon DIY tutorial for how to sew the binding. I also made my covers, and this I probably wouldn't necessarily recommend. It depends on how you treat your books. But for this one, the cover I used was literally just an Amazon box cut down, and then I just followed the tutorial on how to cover it. The reason I say this isn't ideal, it makes it a very lightweight book, and it makes this feel like it's padded, which is kind of cool. So, there's good and bad to it, but I bent to this one, not realizing how, forgetting how easily cardboard will bend on the corrugated areas. So that's the only reason why I say, may not be the perfect solution. Now, when I made the pink one, which I'll show you in another upcoming video, the pink one I used like a hard board. So it's a little heavier physically. It's not puffy, quite as puffy as this, but the covers don't bend as much. So, whatever material you have, I didn't want to spend money. So other than buying the construction paper and the glue, everything else I used I already had in my studio. Okay, so it's this plastic cover, dust cover, I will be keeping on it. But it's just some old packaging that I just taped together, and it does indeed come off. So let me take it off for the flip through itself. so that you can see her and all of her beautiful sunshiny orange citrus fruit beauty. I didn't have an orange that went well with the color of the paper. I do have some oranges, but I wanted something that wouldn't make the color of the paper look off. So I ended up going with this, which is technically a red, but it's like an orange red or a red orange. So it does look really nice together. I did take some of these pages outside in the sunshine because construction paper will degrade in the sun. It's not meant to be a permanent thing. Even though I made it into a journal. I don't care. Like, I don't care if it doesn't last or 100 years or whatever. Okay, so some of the pages I did, there's a little bit more of that in the pink journal, which I'll be using next. But it is definitely something I'm interested in, using the natural environment to have an effect on the pages before I even start working on them. But a subtle effect, because I do, if the effect that you, like, I see journals all the time that are pre-made, and they have like all this patterned scrapbook paper and stuff, and that's great and wonderful, but I end up having to paint over most of it so that I can make my art. So I like it to be reasonably blank, but a little bit of that sunshine, a hint of a leaf pattern, a hint of a flower pattern, that's kind of fun to work with. So, but this entire journal was kind of a experiment to see, what would happen. The first page is actually, luckily, one of my own drawings, which is nice because a lot of the stuff in here is heavily collage. But I did want to have like my actual drawings, as the first page. I kind of just like the idea of that. And also the file folder journal that I did, the first page was not. It was just a collage from my own digital collage items. So yeah, this was mostly just a little bit of watercolor and pencil drawing and marker, and some added, I don't know if you can, how well you can see that, but it's like an iridescent paper, and I added it on here in little circle shapes. It doesn't stick very well. I've had to re-glue it multiple times, so not my favorite medium, only because, like I said, it's hard to glue it down. It tends to resist glue. So here is a collage swap. I took, I took two different faces. I was having trouble with my printer. Basically, it was giving me a hard time. And so I was printing off collage pages and they weren't printing completely correctly. So I had a bunch of off prints. These are two different faces right here completely. But what I did was I cut out her eyebrows and her lips and her necklace, and I glued them onto this girl, and that, I thought that was like super fun. And I also had cut out an apple from a piece of scrapbook paper, and I still have the mask or stencil, the stencil, I still have the stencil from that. So this again was cutting up my own collage images. These were prints that I did because I needed to test out my earring stencils, and so these were like off prints and stuff, and this patterning was, this right here was cut away from here, so if I had left it here you would see that white there, and going into this. But I just had started to really enjoy kind of trying to be a little bit more abstract with my cutting, paper cutting. And also this is both marker, acrylic paint, and gold leaf all sort of combined together into one. It doesn't have quite the look and feel I wanted from it, but I'm not that good yet, or maybe ever will be, with gold leaf. So I did the best I could. Again, testing out my earring stencils and using collage pieces. On this one I didn't do much. I literally just cut her out, added the butterfly and the bee, but on this one over here, the actual collage image is only this big, so I just kind of painted in the top of her head and the bottom of the neck and her hair. And again, this whole page really started because I just wanted to play with my earring stencil. And again, more of my own collage items combined with downloadable collections that I have, and a little of my own drawing. This one, watercolor and acrylic paint and marker and colored pencil and a little bit of collage. These two very collage based, using silhouettes, hand-cut silhouettes from magazines and the background, and then all of the artwork here is art from other artists, collective things I've purchased or from books, that type of thing. Let's see, this one is collage, but then all the rest of it is stencil and just hand-drawn elements and hand-drawn and painted faces, and it looks like watercolor and marker. Lots of acrylic paint. There was something completely different on this page. It wasn't working for me, so I came back in, painted over it, and kept going, and eventually I drew and painted this girl. And then my friends, I think this one came from Linda, my friends sent me a bunch of stamped, so images of stamps that from stamps that they own, including sending me a stamp as well. Thank you so much. And then this was just me ranting about a class that got copycatted. Pretty typical. This was the only thing I think that ended up remaining from what was originally on the page. And I just painted around her. On this page, it's watercolor, gouache, and pencil. I was actually started this entire page because I wanted to test out the darkness of the Stabilo All Black that I think Jill sent to me. I'm guessing at some of these things, so please don't be offended if I guess the wrong person, because I can't remember, I'm going to start putting labels on all this stuff. From Jill, from Linda, from Sharon, from Xandra. No. Anyway, and so she is mostly, I believe, watercolor and pencil. I tried to mark out all the products I use, and I think the total was like 22, but I counted every watercolor, so I probably should have done it differently. And then I would have basically been able to say pencil, watercolor, marker, acrylic paint, and gouache. This was just playing with a paper napkin someone sent me, and then some of my own collage items. I don't remember. I believe this was something to do with how I painted the different faces, but I can't remember. I believe it might have been a lesson. And it's looks to me like it is watercolor and marker and maybe gouache or acrylic. I'm not sure about this green. This is those fountain pens. So this is fountain pen, and then I just wet it and let it do its thing, and then come back in and paint over it. And it looks like it's probably marker, color pencil, maybe gouache. I can't tell though. And this was me ranting about my glasses stencils, because I came out with my glasses stencils and suddenly everyone was drawing and painting faces that had glasses. You don't see it happening now because there's a trend, I think, of when they see something new from me, when something I do gets out into like the general public, instead of keeping it private on Patreon, they see it, they copy it, they move on to the whatever else they're copying, because so many people are just, if you're not a student of mine, then, and I see you, especially if you're not a student of mine and you're a teaching artist, and I see you posting the same stuff that I posted a week ago, it's sus, I'm like, Anyway, I had a leftover piece from when I was testing out the glasses stencils. So this is my actual stencil material. Yeah, you can see it shining there. And it actually had paint on it because I had tested it out. So the yellow and orange paint that you can kind of see on there is actually from me using the stencil, and then eventually I flipped it over so the paint side is down and glued it down, and I just used the Eileen's glue. And then this is just a stencil that I have. I don't remember if this is my stencil or someone else's. I'd have to go back and look. I think it's mine. I think I cut it out initially back when I designed it on cardstock scrapbook paper, because I tend to cut my stencils out on whatever I have in abundance that I'm not using. And then these were super fun because the bodies themselves I cut out from a book, and then I just drew the character heads on myself and painted the clothing. And I really super enjoyed this. I want to do more of this in the future if I remember. And of course, testing out again my earring stencils. Another one, this one, I was testing out this beautiful rose gold watercolor that I got from Xandra. And this stuff is amazing. I highly recommend it. And I'm not a big product person, if you know what I mean. Like I try not to really push a lot of product, because I try to use what you have, although I sell stencils, so, you know, take it with a grain of salt, I guess. But I will say I don't spend a lot of time talking up a lot of product in my videos and stuff. But the thing about this watercolor is that this is just watercolor over top of, it doesn't matter, like you can put this stuff over top of acrylic paint, you can put it over top of gouache. It is not only very glittery, but it always gives that more of a sense of it being like foil or gilded than it does watercolor, and it shows up better and is more opaque and I don't know, metallic-y, shiny than even like the folk art metallics. So like this looks kind of semi-transparent, and you can only see it really well when you move it in the light. But this, let me show you, where's my palette? This gold, now I think Logie might have, yeah, Logie kind of gilded, I guess you would say, a lot of my colors. But this is the actual watercolor, and you can tell, like, I've only had this for a few months, and I've practically, you know, like, I'm trying to use the whole thing up. I'll be buying more. That's all I'm going to say. And that's Xandra, by the way, and she is Scraps to Beauty. Anyway, I will put a link to her shop in the Patreon post underneath of this flip through. That's how much I actually believe in that particular product. So, and I will also say right beside it, because she sent me as like a little gift for buying, she sent me this neon pink, and it's a beautiful color. So highly recommend those two products. Okay, so otherwise there's just collage, testing out my little crowns. This is also one of my crown stencils. This was just a play with collage, super love it. This is, again, a lot of the stuff you see, like the written word and even sometimes the imagery, it has everything to do with whatever book I'm reading. So I was reading a book, and Sandstorm was the name of one of the books in the series. Anyway, and then this is my Angry Man stencil that I cut out. I still love that thing. Yeah, and then I love this image because it reminds me of Bernie Sanders. It's not Bernie Sanders, it's a mathematician, but the silhouette, because you can see the glasses. I don't know, something about it reminds me of Bernie, so that's why it's there. Just playing with my stencils. This was literally a girl from a magazine, and I just was trying to test out my crown stencils, and then eventually I just cut her out and put her in here. This was wanting to play with not only this beautiful metallic paper, which I've painted over so much of it, it's hard to see it, but it came, I think, in the package from the order from Xandra, and I wanted to play with this heart-shaped bubble wrap that Xandra had included, so that's why I made this entire page. Oh, and I like to do faces that are semi-transparent, as you may very well know. I probably actually got that order the day I made this, or close to it, because I even used that gold watercolor in her eyes, and you can see how they shine. This one was celebrating all of my art friends, because all of these things, including this tape right here, and even the little butterflies and even the little clouds, all came from you guys, from my patrons, my online art friends. So, and then this came from a rant of like, I like to post like little sayings on Instagram, and I'll notice some people will like post sayings in response, or I'll suddenly start seeing a word that isn't like, you know, a common phrase that people are using at the moment. I'll use it, and then I'll suddenly start seeing it everywhere. So that's kind of what this was. There are a lot of rants in my journals that people don't realize are rants in my journals. Okay, so Xandra also had sent me some paper napkins, and I love these two. I love the black and white one and the red one, and I wanted to use them, so I made an entire page based on that. But then once I was done with the page, I decided I really wanted it to look, you know, have that look and feel of Under the Sea. So I glazed color over this, and you can kind of see like how this eye is like dark and pushed back, and here you can still see the bright whites. That effect was all just from glazing color over it. I think this was even the tape that was on the package that she had sent me. And Xandra loves mermaids, so that was why I tried to kind of give her that like look of scaled skin. Yeah, my take on my take on mermaids, I guess. This is an ode to this is only one page of it. I have this actually hanging up so I can look at it because I love it so much. But this came out of a magazine, and this artist, I love the genre that this style represents. It's kind of like illustrated pop art, but I super love it. And so I started, and that's a different version, but different colors. And this is more like, I'm a colorful person, so this is probably more like what I actually create. But this one, which has a feel of a little bit more of a muted look to it, is the one I love. So how funny. But anyway, this was my take on that. And this circle right here was actually cut from this. So like when you see the missing circles, this was cut from it. This one has this adorable little turtle. I don't know, let me put this down. Stop holding on to it. I don't know if you can see him, but turtles are one of my most favorite things. I don't know if I talk much about that. Ever since I was a kid, I've been fascinated by turtles. And this little turtle guy just caught my eye because he's just sitting there just riding that circle, and it just feels like life. So anyway, and this was a different piece. You can see it's kind of cut out right here, including the earring. It was all cut out from a test piece I did on watercolor paper with, again, those fountain pens and water. And so when I was wanting to work on a page, I really just wanted to use her because she was laying out on my desk. And so that's kind of the basis for this whole thing. Next, again, still sticking with that style. I'm still working with that even now. And these pages are from May of 2021, and I'm still working through that new love, so to speak. And this tiny little goldfish, I don't know how well you can see him. I ended up painting him a little too dark. I should have left him a lighter, but he also came from one of my online art friends. Just some collage I cut out, more collage, stenciling, all kinds of stuff going on in here. And this is supposed to represent, if I remember correctly, the sun, the moon, and the stars. Or maybe it's the sun, the moon, and the stars. I can't remember. I think that's what it is. I think it's the sun, the moon, and the stars. So I kind of did them differently in the different order, or reverse order. And then she is a stencil of mine. This is a stencil that's from iStencils. I'm pretty sure she's still available. And then this I just hand drew. still in that same mode here. Let me take this off because this is just covering the other page. And I got to take it off to show you the other page anyway. So this was a cutout from some collage, some of my own digital collage, drawing it, and then my own digital collage here, and then lots, just very mixed media. But again, still playing with, you know, this whole concept that started here. And it technically didn't start here because it started in my other journal, but anyway, which isn't complete, so I'm not going to do a flip through. So this was just a model from a magazine, and I cut her out, and then I glued her down, and then I painted this girl on as if she was wearing her like a printed shirt. And then I think I did a lesson where I showed how to do abstract flowers and use them as a means of transitioning your page. So not only did I transition the overall color using them, but I was also able to completely change, you know, what the rest of the page flowed like simply by adding those flowers on. And I did actually add the ray, starburst ray sort of thing after I finished the flowers. And these are all just hand drawn and hand painted. So let me just put this back. And this is here because some of this ink, just from using it over and over, started transferring onto their faces. So I probably could come back in and seal this, but I'm not, if I remember correctly, I don't trust that the black won't bleed if I get it wet, because I used a ink that I mixed up myself, so it's not 100% waterproof. This was when I started getting into, and this, by the way, I will say this journal is not consistent with timing. So you might see something from June here, and then May, and then you might see like April, another couple more pages. So it's not, they're not in order. They're not consecutive. But this was when I got into painting fruit. I did that over the summer. I still want to get back to painting more fruit and vegetables because I really, you know, as a vegan, I'm like, I love my fruits and vegetables. But this was really fun to do, and I was really proud of myself that I found it was hard to make this look like a wedge, you know, give it thickness. But I do feel like I accomplished that, and I was really happy with that. And also too, I just love all the patterning in here. And I believe Xandra sent me a gift of this free stencil, if I remember correctly, and that's what I used to do all the patterning in it. I super love this page. Using the same stencil, I think it was the same stencil or a similar stencil to this triangle one, because I hand cut this triangle stencil. I also hand cut this one. As you can tell, the sizes are not consistent because it's handmade. Again, things that are handmade tend to have, in my opinion, a completely different feel than things that are commercially done. So when I create my own stencils, now these are just hand cut, but even the ones that I create digitally, I try to make them a little bit imperfect because I feel like that imperfectness is an element that I always want in my art. It makes me feel more satisfied with what I end up creating. And then this page was, you know, basically how to take a really wild and crazy, busy background. And someone's already trying to contact me. See, this is what I mean. I can't even get through a video, although I do talk a lot. Okay, never mind. Thank goodness I don't have to respond to that yet. I had originally intended to fill all of these triangles with something, but then my granddaughter had this little cutout of an eyeball that she didn't use, and she gave it to me, and I was like, what do you want to do with it? And she found this page, and so we glued it to this page. And then I was like, you know, I'm going to find more black and white things, and then I didn't. But I ended up making a page later on. It's like one of the last pages I did in this journal. And I felt like this like sort of floating eye kind of influenced that page a bit. And this is from my grandson, Logan. He was 4 at the time that he did this page. I like to preserve those in my journals and hang on to them. This was, I think the score is like a song or a band. I'm definitely telling on myself here that I don't know. I think it's a band. Anyway, these lyrics are lyrics from their song, and I just really liked that song. So that's why all of that is on there. And then I just really wanted to use this I don't know, princess or whatever. She's just an actress, I believe, or a model. But I wanted to use that image, so I made this page just goofing around. I made this page when I was over staying at my daughter's after she had her baby for a week or two. I think it was like 13 days. And so I would only get to create in little bits of time. And I glued all of the collage stuff down first, and then I added the background, the palm tree, the clouds, the rain, and then eventually I happened across a beautiful picture of blueberries up close. And so I painted the blueberries, and then I saw a picture of a watermelon slice, and I remembered how I enjoyed the the pineapple one and trying to give it that thickness effect, and so I wanted to paint that again. This page was kind of, still trying to follow along with this concept, where like there'll be areas where you'll just have some random thing happen or appear. So like you just have this little square here, and suddenly it's got rain and clouds, but yet there's this little palm tree. Or like over here where it's this guy and suddenly his head is radiating light, and these are aliens. So it's like that sort of concept of combining sort of real things with abstract stuff was kind of what I was going with here. So like you've got clouds in the sky and a palm tree, but yet you've got flowers, radiating lines, and then you just have this randomness, whatever this is. But I needed the patterning for that area, and basically the way I created a lot of this was just smearing paint on several different colors over top of some collage, and then just going through and finding shapes, so I just was finding shapes here. So that's kind of where all this came from. And then I think this is the raw paper, so this must have been the first thing I did was I must have drawn these two faces and then came in and just smeared paint around. All right, so this was, again, abstract play with stencils, and I actually took, it was just here. This is a picture of a vase. It's like a floor height, like I think it's probably like a candelabra, candle holder, I think. Anyway, it's floor height, and it's really cool. I love the shapes and the color, and so I turned it into a stencil, and that's the large version, and that's only part of it because it goes like way bigger than what you can see here. And then this page was done after the fact, and I just tried to kind of make it flow a little bit, and again I used that stencil that I made, the top, and then flipped it and did the bottom, but that whole piece right there is the stencil that I made, and that's the large version. Okay, this one was just a play on making a really busy, crazy background, similar to what I did with this background, but then coming back in, I taped it off, so it was like 3 paintings, but I did it all at once, and then I came back in with some cut-offs. So this orange is just cut away from a different page. It was basically a piece of paper, and I had done some hole punching to get some little dots that I wanted that were in orange, and so this was kind of left over, and I just cut it out and glued it down. This page makes me very happy. Also, too, someone had sent me some Post-it notes that were the absolute perfect match to the coral paint that I like to use. So I was like, this is Sprite's Coral. Here I was being a little bit ranty because someone had released basically the equivalent of the same thing as my Serendipity inchies, which were from my Art Geeks, which would have been like 10 years ago, I think, 10 or 14 years ago. And someone just released them again, and that's fine. Having similar ideas is wonderful. But when she released it, she was like, she wrote this whole thing about how she'd never seen anyone ever do anything like this before. This was a brand new idea and concept. And I'm just like, I just wish people would understand that, do a little research, or just don't come out and claim it's a brand new, the first person that thought of it sort of, concept in such a big way, when it's so easy to look and say, yeah, no, not really. Also, too, that person is sort of kind of copying off of my patterned leaves thing, which again, is not a big deal, but they're like making a big deal out of it. And when they make a big deal out of it is when it frustrates me, because I was doing the same stuff 10 years ago, and they weren't around then, so they don't know that. But yeah, anyway, but this is just a celebration of color, if you know what I mean. Like, I just love this. Looking at this page, I immediately feel uplifted and happy, and I could totally have this as a painting hanging on my wall, and every day when I looked at it, it would put me in a good mood. So, and I think really when I think about color, color definitely, for me anyway, affects my mood. So the colors that are around me, the colors that I wear on my body, they definitely affect how I feel. And I definitely dress for the mood. So like if I am going to be going to something where, all right, so for instance, if I'm going to a protest, I dress accordingly to the activity, but I also dress for the mood of it. So going to a protest, I'm probably going to wear dark colors, or I'm going to wear something that has meaning to the protest I'm going to, right? So, dress for the event. But I do wear a lot of bright colors. So, okay, this girl, I literally painted her because Linda sent me a beautiful opaque pink watercolor. Logi's made it kind of yucky. I don't usually let Logan use this palette. I normally bring, where's my big palette? Oh, I can't get to it. Well, maybe I can. Hang on. Yeah, I can. When I'm going to play with watercolors with the kids, I usually bring this palette, because this is like all my really old, this is my original watercolor palette. And so Logan can't really mess this up. It doesn't have the like super expensive stuff in it, but I unfortunately only had this one with me, and I'm gonna say that I don't care if Logan ruins it. I mean, first off, you really can't ruin watercolor. I just haven't had time to go in and wet these and clean them up. But anyway, so he's made it kind of messy, but she sent me this beautiful pink, which I think would be an exact match for the pink construction paper journal that I'm going to start using. I don't know proper English suddenly today. But this face is basically made by combining and using them separately too, this color and this pink. And I just wanted to showcase how beautiful those super soft pinks are over this orange. So I don't know, yeah, they're soft and they're very pretty. So I did this whole page just for that purpose. That's, it happens. And then I was working on the diaphanity class at the time, so I put that on there. And basically, I was just getting that class back and re-releasing it because it's an older class. And then this was some old wrapping paper that had a pattern on it that I was out of style, out of date. So I just covered it with acrylic paints and gouache, and then eventually I used Neocolor 2s and went in and doodled on it. And this was just one of those doodles, and I just cut it out and I liked it, glued it in, and then I actually have the cutout piece still as a stencil, and I think I'm going to eventually turn it into a stencil that I will sell. Not that it'll necessarily be a big seller because everyone and their brother has them now. Doesn't matter. This, I was trying to use up some old paintings, and I was like, what am I going to do with these? And I was cutting out stencils at the time, and I was like, oh, hey, I'll just slap one of these on there. And these are all the little pieces that are missing from here. And I really love the effect of it. I'm definitely have ideas brewing in my head of different things I can do with the die cut machine and my own designs and stencil ideas to make some fun, interesting art. I'm actually planning on making a mobile for my newest granddaughter, Natalie or Lily. I'm actually currently making a mobile using my die cut machine as the basis for that. So this, I don't think I can't remember which one of these is the original. I have this in the other one of my other journals too. So one of them was the original, but basically I had this idea in my head that I wanted to use spatter to create hair, and in the process of it realized that once the spatter was dry, if I used opaque acrylic, so craft paint basically, once it was dry, I could stain or put a dark wash over the paper, and everywhere that the spatter had gone, it would pop. So this was super fun. And then I decided to do something about transparency because I love to paint over transparent faces. So I extended the spatter out across this whole page and then drew and painted her. So this orange is the original paper. This is painted. And I just love the bright pop of color. This one, I drew the girl, wasn't overly enthused about her. That happens sometimes, but definitely didn't want to paint over it, so I just kept playing with it, and this page just sort of slowly developed from that. And I had some weird color choices, like the purple with the midnight indigo with the green and the yellow, just like really bright punches of colors. And I actually think this page as a whole is really quite pretty. I hated it when I was, because I didn't like the drawing, so I was like, nah, I don't like this page, but I really love this page. And I think adding this interactive sort of element here is probably what I love the most. And that, I literally did that on a whim. I think I did this on camera, whether this was a live show or I think this was probably a live show. But the page was partially done. This page started because I wanted to test out my stencils that I was working on developing, and so they were already there before the rest of the page was worked on. And at one point, for whatever reason, I just really wanted to make them pop more and make them integrated into the page more than they were, other than just being three faceless heads, right? So I got the wild idea to cut a circle out here so that these bits would still show. And I think when I did it, everybody was probably like, what are you going to do with that page now? So I don't think anyone expected, that it would turn out really fun like that. And then I stenciled the apples down from that little stencil I hand cut, but then I sat and painted them, painted over them, I guess, basically, to kind of enhance them and make them look a little more interesting and not like just they do here where they're just a plain stencil. And of course, at the time, I had just developed the pattern stencils, or was in the process of developing them. So this page had 1, 2, 3, 4 of these heads or girls on it. Everything else developed from there. So they were the first things that went down on the page. And so then I came back in and cut this girl out, and I cut her, and her hair are separate things. So I had drawn her on book text paper, and then when I went to do this, I was like, what am I going to do for the hair? And I was like, you know what, I have a piece that I had that blue, messy blue stuff was already on there, and I think some of the writing was, well, I can't remember. Anyway, I think there was some writing or something on there. I could be wrong. Anyway, I just, hand cut out the paper to make her hair. This little girl is one of my little collage pieces, and she's actually the basis to this one. All right, so this one, if you look at the hair and stuff, that is her. Basically, so I used her silhouette to create that. And then this is the other side of the little circles. And if anyone wants to know how I did that, that's a single piece of book text paper, and I drew out the circles, used a cutting knife to cut each one, and they're all attached to one piece of paper though. And this is the I didn't finish cutting them. In other words, like I drew a line on it, and I only cut this much of it. But this side here, I left solid. And the reason was because I wanted to camouflage from this side the two heads that are there. So that's the two heads from here. I wanted to camouflage them a bit, and I think that worked out really well. Let's see, again, these are Logan's drawings, and I need to write on here that these are Logan's drawings. I keep forgetting to. This one we did as, I think, a lesson, or it's a journal along, and basically I just wanted to create something that looked similar to the effect of what was going on my blotter paper. And as well, I had figured out if I mixed a certain two colors, I would get this yellow. I think of this as like caution yellow or construction yellow, because whenever you see the yellow on the roads for the, like when they want to put lines down for safety or something, it seems like they always use that yellow. Anyway, and then along with that, I was still in the process of developing the little patterned stencils. These were the minis, and I was on my blotter paper, which you can't see here. I had been testing them out, and I had kind of piled them up, and I really like the look of piling stencils. And so I ended up making this page to kind of look like that. This is the Shadowlands is, I can't remember if it's it's not the title of the book, I think. It's just a quote that came out of, the book was called Sorrowland. That's what it is. But this quote about Shadowlands is in the book. And I actually, whenever I'm listening to an audiobook, I don't know if I've talked about this before, I listen to a ton of audiobooks. And sometimes when I'm listening to an audiobook, I will realize there's a quote that I super am interested in, and I'll just pause at the timing. So like as I'm listening, when I hear the quote, I'll back up, I'll pause it, and then I'll screenshot it. And the reason I do, and then I save it in my notes. And the reason I do that is because it'll tell me it's chapter 23 at exactly 8 minutes and 3 seconds in. And then it shows me, the book. So I know who the title of the book, I know the author, and I know exactly where in the book the quote is, so I can go back and get it. So I actually have a notes section called Quotes from Books, and it's filled basically with just screenshots of different parts of books. Now sometimes, depending on the notes program I'm using, this notes program I don't like that much. I love a lot of elements of it, but the one thing I don't like is how it handles inline graphics with text. I used to actually type out the text of the quote, But the way it handles pictures in this notes program, I don't like it. And the text gets all confusing. It gets out of line. And I'll have the wrong timestamp with the wrong quote without realizing it. So I've resorted to just putting the actual pictures in of the timing. And you can always tell a good book when I have multiple quotes from that book. I always know that's an author I'm going to like. But yeah, so this whole page was basically created because I wanted to use my Shadowlands stencil, because I turned that into a stencil. That's how much I like that quote, because I think it's super true. And then this girl I'm going to end up ripping her leg right there. I think I might actually already have. Yep, I did. So I better put tape on her before she gets ripped any further. But basically, she was out of a book, and she's super like happy and smiley and friendly looking, but her shadow is a whole different story. And I super love that. And I was like, oh, that reminds me of that quote from the book. And you know, that's where it started, where it ended, so to speak. So you can do like how it started, how it is now. And then that is the stencil I was talking about from that piece, from the wrapping paper that I cut out. That's the stencil that it makes. And I just arbitrarily decided I wanted my quote to be more impactful than it was. And I loved the idea of this little ribbon going off the page being enhanced. So I just arbitrarily cut an area out, and then I ended up having to glue this little piece here back onto it. And then I decided I needed something different. So I decided to create this little string of confetti. And then I decided to add this, which was just a deli paper that I had tested out a stencil on. And this was just like the leftover stuff. And that's kind of why I decided to cut that out and use it. And that was literally the start to the page. And again, more paper that I hole punched to make my little confetti string. I ended up using that in the page. And again, I really do like painting fruit and veggies, so I painted an apple here. This, I had a concept in my mind, an idea for what I was going to do with this bright green. I haven't figured it all out yet, but I do like it. And I literally was just drawing off the top of my head and drew the girl with the little cat ears. And then I tried to use similar colors over here, but this was a lesson on abstract composition and how you can just take two stencils, because that's what I did. I took two different stencils and didn't use them as the item they're supposed to be. I used elements of them or parts of them. And I love this page. I love that, that edge, that silhouette there. I'm super happy with that page. Again, remember when I was talking about that one eyeball that Madison wanted to save and how she just kind of arbitrarily stuck it on that diamond? That, I think, had been sitting in the back of my head for quite a while when I had a bunch of these substitution stickers that I found in my mom's grocery order when I was putting her grocery order away. And so I was like, oh, got to use those in my journal. And then I had these girls, they were supposed to be painted for Enfrema kits, but sometimes I don't like I don't know, it could be the hair, the paper, something about one of the drawings. So some of them I just end up cutting the heads out, and I was going to cut the heads out, and I remembered that page and was like, substitution, oh wait. And so I cut all the little face elements out. Obviously some of them I cut into squares, but some of them I cut them out, and I actually cut 4 girls out. So these lips don't technically go with this face. This nose doesn't technically go with this face, nor I think do the lips. And this eye is the eye from this drawing, not from this drawing. So super fun, but I really love this page. I think it actually says a lot of things. with the word substitution. So I didn't add any additional journaling to this one because I was like, I want it to be defined by when you look at it, what it makes you think of. And here was, I think this is one of the most recent lessons, and it's just basically a lesson in layering stencils. I love layering, and I used to do a ton of this type of layering back when I had spray inks all the time, because you can get a page done in a heartbeat with spray inks and some stencils. But here I wanted to concentrate on silhouettes and play and have fun, and sort of, try to help people understand why I have such a love for stencils and hand cutting out things myself, because it leads me places, it leads me to ideas. Ideas only find you when you are at your desk working. Oh, look, and you can see my pajamas. Sorry, I have my knees up. I sit in my chair like a little kid who annoys the teacher. Yeah. Okay, so for this one, I again was just testing out the stencils, and so I had a full double page spread with nothing but these girls on it, and I decided that wasn't going to cut it. So I had cut these flowers out of paper napkin already, so I just added them to it, or maybe I cut them out. I don't remember if I cut them out already or if I just decided that paper napkin matched my journal, my orange paper, because I was already getting sad because journal was ending soon. And so eventually I was like, I need to finish these off somehow. So I came in and I titled it here, Trust, and then over here I wrote all about, personal stuff. And I wrote it intentionally with, I think this is like a light gray with a colored pencil that I knew it wouldn't be like super easy to read. So if you like to write in your journals, but you don't necessarily want people to easily be able to go back and read it, actually looking at this was a light gray pastel pencil. So I don't think I've sealed this. So if I come in and I do this, yeah, see, I can disappear it. So I like to journal with pastel pencils or with things that are not, that over time the writing will wear away, is the best way to describe it, I think. And I really like how this green here is like a nice bright pop of color, but how it fades, and frankly it looks like they're walking in mist, doesn't it? I super like that effect. And then this is the last page, and I loved this lesson, and I'm not sure a lot of people followed through on this lesson, but it was definitely one of my favorites, because I literally had a ripped up piece of magazine page laying on my desk. I had ripped it away from something completely different. I think I even maybe like used the other side of the page. And this was just a ripped piece that was left over. And I literally was like, what can I do with this? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a page from it. So I glued it down, and everything else followed from that. And it is still one of my most favorite techniques to do. And that is the end of the orange construction paper journal. Probably at this moment in time, my most favorite journal ever. And I think it's because I made it entirely myself, right? I'm not a big, or I guess I should say I previously was not a big art journal maker. I like to just buy them and go, because I go through a lot of journals, and to me it was the ease of just being able to go to the store and buy 3 or 4 of them and be ready to go. But in 2020 and 2021, so maybe, it has something to do with COVID, and, being in kind of lockdown and all of that, I got interested in making my own journals, and I absolutely love making journals now. Super love them. Oh, and I didn't talk about it, but I think I was either on a live show or something. I made this little pocket because someone had sent me this card, And I loved the envelope, the way that it was decorated, and the card as well. So I wanted to hang on to it just like it was. So I actually just made this pocket specifically to hang on to this. And as part of the process, because I had the pocket here, this was a letter that Linda C., I think, wrote me, and I wanted to save it as well. Memories. Sometimes I think my art journals are like an artist's version of a scrapbook. In sometimes, like not the way though that you see with the term junk journals. I don't consider my art to be junk. At all, ever. So I hate that phrase. It's just a personal thing though. I mean, it doesn't have to have negative connotations. The term bothers me for whatever. I don't know why. It just does. I'm just a weirdo. We all know that. And my phone is going off again. But that's okay because we're done. So thank you, family. What am I doing wrong? Hang on. I'm putting this in the wrong place or something. I think I'm trying to fit it into the fold over and it's not supposed to. Yeah, that's what I was doing wrong. All right, so I'm super sad that this journal is complete, but I am super happy because I love this journal and I have another one. And I have something really super cool to me. I actually have something that I have put in this journal already that I found in a store, bought it and saved it. And the idea to make these journals came because I needed something that I could put it into that had pink paper. That was in my head. Like as soon as I saw the thing that I'm not showing you, as soon as I saw it, I was like, I need a journal that has pink paper. I don't know why. It just boom. And from there, I went online and I bought the pink paper. And when I was buying it, I needed to make the order a little more than it was. I don't remember why, if it was shipping or a discount or what. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to get another color. And I saw the orange and was like, oh, I have to have an orange paper journal. So the item that's in here, which I'll show you in a video, the first video where we use the pink journal, what is in here inspired all of this. And it's the weirdest thing, like the weirdest reason why I would end up, doing this. But there it is. That is the orange journal. She's done. I miss her already. I put her up on the shelf and I've taken her down like 3 or 4 times to have to go back in and take a photo or reference something. But I probably should just dedicate a shelf near my desk that I can put like my 3 or 4 most recently completed journals, because I keep pulling it back down off the shelf anyway. All right, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this flip through and I will see you with the next video.